Calling all mixed media artists. If you are not feeling your creativity, you're stuck, or you have no idea where to start, this video is for you. Not every day is sunshine and roses in the studio. Sometimes the art just won't come to you. Today, I'm sharing 5 techniques I use whenever I feel uninspired. One of the tips is so surprising and easy, it will change how you approach your creativity from this day forward. I'm Jackie Bernardi, and welcome to my studio. Art doesn't always come easy, and instead of wasting hours worrying about it and not doing anything, I'm going to share 5 things today that I do whenever I am in a place where it's just not coming easily to me. Sometimes that's before I start anything and I don't know what I want to do. Other times I've been working on a project so intensely that I've kind of lost sight of where I want to go, and I just need to step away from it for a moment. I'm going to start right in with technique number 1, which is painting papers in solid colors. As artists, we all love the wild papers that we create, the beautiful things that we make on a gel plate, the unexpected. But sometimes we actually do need to have the calmness of a solid color in our stash of items that we use in mixed media. Now, what I'm doing here is I am just taking regular pieces of newsprint, and I am just taking a couple colors and just making solid color blocks on the paper. Now, you can see a little bit of texture there because I am using a silicone paint shaper instead of a brush or a roller, but I don't mind that. Even though there's a little bit of texture, it's still just a solid color. And we need the solid colors, especially in collage when we have a lot going on. Sometimes the greatest contrast you can get is from a solid color. The thing that I love about just painting solid colors is that it requires absolutely no brain power. It's very productive because I create papers that I will use in the future. But what it really allows me to do is not think so hard and daydream about future projects or really anything. It just takes my mind out of the mindset of having to accomplish something and then just doing. My hands are pretty much just making these motions by themselves. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm making a pink version of black. And I know that sounds crazy, but someday I may need this exact color. And so as I'm creating it, I'm not thinking about the color mixing because that's just automatic. What I am thinking about is, what does this color look like and what can I use it in? I'm not actually looking for a specific answer here. I'm just allowing myself to go with the daydream and think about how I might use these papers. Of course, the really utilitarian thing about this is that at the end, I have a stash of papers that are just solid that I can always refer to when working on a project. As you can see, I've been using a gel plate as a palette, and what that will give me is a print, and it won't be a solid colored print. You can see it's very textured and kind of cool, but what it does give me is more papers in that exact same color family as the solid colors that I created. If by chance I keep all of these papers together, I have a really cohesive stash to work with as I go. And here's what I do with them. I keep them all gathered together in color groupings, and I just pin them up on the wall, and I can grab them and use them in collage. I can grab them and color match. They're so useful and they're always around. And truly, it's just a great, quite brainless activity that can actually inspire so much creativity. Creative slumps are so frustrating. They can result from being overwhelmed or uninspired, but a lot of times they're a result of just not being ready when you have an idea and you want to create it. So, my next technique is to prep my substrates prior to needing them. So what I'm doing here is I'm just taking some black gesso and I am laying it down on a large piece of watercolor paper, not for a specific project, but for that just in case project that I'll have later. Now, am I going to want to use a black gessoed paper? Maybe, maybe not, but it's there if I need it. And if I get inspired and I want to go on a project instantly, I don't have to take the time to not only paint the paper, but to let it dry. Whether it's prepping paper or hardboard panels, it doesn't matter. It's just have a stash of papers or journal pages that you have prepped the way that you like to prep papers, whether that's taping off the edges, whether it's gessoing, whether it's priming in some other way. Whatever way works for you, make sure you have a variety of substrates and such that you have prepared in advance so that you're ready to go. It's a super simple activity and it's a great thing to do while you're having a low creativity day. The next technique that I use whenever I am feeling in a slump or I'm not sure what I want to do next is I will just grab a couple of paints, a brush, and some cards and start color mixing. Color mixing is so satisfying. And here's the thing, it's easy. We're not talking about color theory, or you could add that in if you wanted. But what I'm talking about is literally just mixing up colors and putting them on cards. Now, you don't have to put them on cards. You could just put them on pieces of paper. I like the cards because I can hang them. I can write on the back what colors were there, and I can use them as reference cards forever. I'm telling you all, this is an amazing way to spend a low creativity day. When you blend colors, you're giving yourself the opportunity to create ideas or possibilities that you may or may not be able to see in the moment when you're working on a piece. I like using the little cards because I can just go through them. I can find what I think is the perfect color, and then I can hold it up next to the rest of the work of art to see if that really is the right color for what I'm looking for. Now, I have spent maybe 4 or 5 hours on any given day when color mixing because I just lose myself in it and I love it. This is only one strategy for color mixing, but I'll tell you, whatever you do, it will make a difference in your art. It will improve your art. It will improve your knowledge about color, and it may inspire you to create something brand new. I'm using a little piece of index paper here. The little cards that you see me working on are gift tags that I got, I'm sure, on Amazon. I'll link to them in the description below. But they're really durable, and because they have a hole on top of them, I can, once they're dry, I can string them up or I can put them in a box, but they're always around for reference when I need them, and I love that. The important thing always when you're color mixing is to write down what you actually mixed, because someday, trust me, you're going to create a color that you will be wildly in love with and you won't remember how you created it. So be sure always to write down the colors that you used. Now, I find color mixing exercises like this go so much better if you only use 2 or 3 colors at a time. When you start using more colors, although you can get sophisticated colors doing it that way, it's very easy to lose track of what you did, and that would be a shame because these are so useful in your art practice as a whole. I think maybe the best thing that I get out of color mixing, especially on days when I'm not feeling particularly creative, is I love the possibilities that it creates in my brain for color combinations for later. I think that's awesome. As mixed media artists, I think we spend so much of our time thinking about our creativity in terms of the future that we frequently forget about the amazing pieces that we've made in the past. And that brings me to my next technique, which is to have an artist's date with your old sketchbooks. Every time I do this, I am surprised and delighted by things that I have made in the past. And other times I'm like, oh, what was I thinking? But I always try to learn something when reviewing it. What I felt like on the day that I created any given page may be remarkably different than the way I feel when I look at it now. This page here, I hated it when I originally created it, and now I rather like it. So it's amazing when you review older things in your sketchbook, how much you can get out of it. And I promise you, it's a worthy practice to take yourself on an art sketchbook date. Playing off of the artist date technique, sorting your painted papers is a very practical way to get re inspired while also doing some important studio maintenance. When sorting papers, there's really only one decision that you have to make, and that is which pile a piece of paper goes in. That leaves your mind and creative muse free to explore different ideas based on the papers that you are touching. Now, I don't know about you, but I've got maybe thousands of papers in my studio, and revisiting them after a while is always exciting. It's almost like putting up the Christmas tree and playing the I remember game with all the ornaments. You forget about some of these papers, and when you go through and sort them, not only are you reminding yourself of what you've created in the past, but you're also cleaning up and organizing your studio, which are two very worthy practices, particularly when you're in a slump. Also, this is an excellent exercise in feeling accomplished. Our brains love organization even when we don't do it often. So when you see all of your papers in nice piles that are all maybe color based or texture based or type of paper based, it makes your creative soul happy. And that's a great stepping off point for inspiration. At the beginning of this video, I promised you one technique that would change the way that you approach creativity going forward, and this is it. The technique that I'm using here is to cut down papers. Now, stay with me because this might be the Mac Daddy of all low creativity day activities. All right. So, what I'm talking about is making your materials work the way you need them to right away, as opposed to either suffering with something that only sort of works and you'll make it work, or being wasteful. What you're seeing here is me cutting down sheets of wet strength tissue paper. And when I purchased this paper, I purchased it in bulk because I was so madly in love with it. So the package was 480 sheets of this paper. Now, each sheet of this paper is 20-inch by 30-inch. It's a very large piece of paper, of which it's very unlikely that I'm going to be doing too many things on a sheet of paper that large. Now, I'm not going to lie, buying 480 sheets of the wet strength tissue paper is not inexpensive. However, using this technique makes this paper not only so inexpensive, but such an incredible value. And it gives you a very important mind shift change. I even did this with my rolls of medical exam table paper. I bought the paper as a case, these giant rolls as a case. And so it's the rolls, each roll is 21 inches by 125 feet. If you live pretty much anywhere else in the world, that's 53 centimeters by 3,810 centimeters per roll. We're talking a lot of paper here. And the case comes with 12 rolls. So if you have purchased the medical exam paper in bulk like I have, you're going to love this. So what's the technique? What I do on these types of days is I spend time taking all that paper and cutting it down to actual sizes that I use regularly. So the sizes that I use most when I'm painting papers or gel printing is either 8 by 10, 9 by 12, or 6 by 6, right? Sure, I use other size papers too, but majority of the papers I use fall somewhere in those dimensions. And so to take control of my own art and to be able to create it the way I want and feel good about it and not have any waste, I cut down papers to the sizes I use most. My paper is not the boss of me, and it shouldn't be the boss of you either. You shouldn't have to be forced to create things in sizes that you will not use naturally, right? There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just telling you, there's a mindset shift that happens when you cut down your papers. All right, let's do some paper math. We'll start with the wet strength tissue paper. For a stack of 480 sheets at $90 US, which is what I paid, once cut down to 6 by 6 inch, I get 12 cuts per sheet. If I cut it down to 9 by 12, I get 4 cuts per sheet. But because I have 480 sheets, that gives me a whopping 5,760 sheets of 6 by 6 paper and 1,920 sheets of 9 by 12 paper. Those are the two sizes that I use the very most. I mean, that's a bargain. That brings it down to 0.01. So just 1.5 cents per sheet if you cut it down to 6 by 6, or 4.5 cents per sheet of 9 by 12 paper. The math matters here only in that when you buy 480 sheets of paper for $90, your mind thinks that it is expensive. But when you're able to look at that $90 and that it bought you 1,920 sheets of paper, all of a sudden your ability to create breaks wide open because you're not as worried about wasting precious paper. Is it a lot of money to buy paper? Yes, it is. But 1,920 sheets of 9 by 12 paper will last you a lifetime. And I'm not exaggerating. And it gets even better with the medical exam paper. For every roll of medical exam paper, you can get 250 sheets out of one roll when you cut them down to 9-inch by 12-inch. That's 3,000 sheets per case. If you were to cut down all the medical exam paper that you got in a case to 9 by 12 sheets, you get 3,000 sheets of paper to use. If you cut an entire case down to 6 by 6 inch, you'd have a ridiculous 93,000 sheets for the case. Now, are you ever going to use that much paper? No, and you're never going to want to cut down that much paper. That would be a lifetime occupation. But what I'm trying to get to here is that when you look at your paper in the terms of the way that you use it and you cut it down to those dimensions, not only are you saving money, but you're opening up possibilities to explore where you might not have explored before because you were so concerned about the paper being precious or expensive. And I love this technique, especially for the days where I'm feeling no creativity at all. So this is it. These are the 5 top techniques that I use on days when I have low creativity or I feel like I'm in a slump or need to step away. I would love to know what your techniques are. Drop them in the comments. And this is the video that I would watch next.